Welcome in. I know I'm a little early this evening. A couple minutes anyway. Welcome to the first night of Friday Storytimes. Didn't test my voice like I should have. Let's see what it sounds like. Testing my voice. 1, 2, 3. Hopefully this isn't full of static. But I guess we'll find out. Testing my voice. 1, 2, 3. Hopefully this isn't full of static. All right, we are good to go. Oh, Teresa, thank you for the heart me. I appreciate you. Jennifer Thomas, thank you for the like. Thank you for the likes. I really appreciate you guys. So this is going to be a brand new installment of Storytime with UndeadPapa. Sundays we have our traditional Sunday night bedtime stories and oh boy, my brain. So what I'm doing is I'm packaging the 3 lives that I do during the week together, all under the umbrella of Storytime with UndeadPapa. We're going to have Sunday night bedtime stories where we focus on family-friendly stories, longer form content. We are currently reading Mrs. Frisbee and the Rats of Nim. Wednesdays will be now Wednesday Night Wonders. It's going to be for the darker and more unsettling stories out there. And maybe some fantastic and out there cosmic horror type stuff. And now tonight we're going to add Friday Night Frontiers. On Friday nights we're going to focus on classic science fiction. Stories from old pulp magazines, stories by well-known authors of the science fiction genre who pushed the literature of the fantastic forward. And I am super happy that you guys are joining me on this journey. I'm starting to think of this as sort of like an old radio show. Which, if you're like me, that's kind of a wonderful thing. But I really appreciate it. I really appreciate it. Ah, nice. Milky Mare, I appreciate you. Hey, Wings at Work. I haven't played Minecraft in forever. I need to fix that. I love that game. Actually, if you like Minecraft, there is a game out there called Icarus, which essentially is Minecraft, but with realistic graphics. It's really cool. So the stories tonight are for the older crowd. One is The Skull by Philip K. Dick. It's a time travel story. And the other one is a carryover from Wednesday night. It's called The Small Assassin. It's dark, and it's by Ray Bradbury. Those are the 2 stories I will be reading tonight. Well, hello, V. Sanchez. Welcome in. This is Storytime. I basically spend the next 2 hours reading. Some classic science fiction, some horror, and on Sunday nights we do family-friendly stuff. like we are currently reading Mrs. Frisbee and the Rats of Nim. So, welcome in. If you're into that kind of thing, please feel free to stick around. I appreciate you being here. Sarah, I am excited too. I think this is awesome. Playing a horror mod pack. Oh, that's cool. Love it. Yeah, my ex-wife and I used to play World of Warcraft together. Well, Sarah, I have some plans that will include me actually recording some of these stories, editing them, putting some music to them and sound effects, and actually publishing them out on my YouTube channel, where I am also currently streaming. Yeah, Mrs. Frisbee and the Rats of Nim is one of my all-time favorite books. I loved the movie as a kid, and as soon as I figured out that there was a book, I think I have read. I think I've read this book probably. I think I've read that book probably. My gosh, at this point, I mean, I'm 50, so I've read that. I saw the movie in the theater when it came out, so if that tells you. And I think I've read this. I think I've read that book probably a half a dozen times. Hey, Songbird, thank you for the gifts. I really appreciate you. Welcome in. Thank you for coming back as always. I do have a couple of moderators, so if you do have a question while I'm reading, they usually do their best to answer those questions. And I appreciate everything that they do, believe me. Well, the book was released in the 70s, so I won't ask you how old you are. Yes. It's kind of amazing that the character of Jonathan Frisbee is very prominent in the book, but the character's only seen in a flashback. Katie, we're reading 2 science fiction stories this evening. I haven't started yet. We're going to be reading The Skull by Philip K. Dick. And if you were here, were you here on Wednesday? Because the second one is actually a holdover from Wednesday. All right, so there's 55 of you in the room right now. Before I get started reading, 60 now. Before I get started reading, where's everybody listening or watching from? I love to find out where everybody is from. Titus, no, you are not too late. I have not started yet. I really think it's wonderful that everybody is coming in tonight. This is a brand new live for me, so this is the first night, and I'm really hoping it's successful because I love it. I love doing this. This is really one of those things that, part of the reason I started doing this was because I miss reading stories to my kids because they're both older now. We got some Texas in the house, East Tennessee, Memphis, Florida, California. I have friends in California. Ohio, Michigan. Nice. I have a very close friend who lives in Detroit. Birmingham, Alabama. Welcome. That's awesome. Alaska. Funny thing enough, Alaska, now you're the second person I've had in here from Alaska over the course of over the course of the time I've been on. But surprisingly enough, my farthest away regular is actually Norway, if you can believe that. Schenectady, New York. I actually was born in Utica. I currently live in Rochester. Yeah, it's cold. It's cold here in Rochester too. It was nice for a while, but holy cow! It like I thought I was gonna have to go out and clean off the car. It was crazy. Minnesota, welcome in. Born in Buffalo. Now, Kate asks if you were born in Buffalo. You how long did you live in Buffalo? Because you may be able to back me up on this. People think that I'm crazy when I say that Western New York, Rochester, and Buffalo has the best pizza in the country. I mean, like hands down, I have never had better pizza than I have had here in Western New York. Right? Yeah, buffalo wings. That's just, yep. And actually, surprisingly enough, my favorite taqueria is in Buffalo. Now, if you're ever in Buffalo and you want really good, authentic tacos, the place you have to go to is called La Divina. It is freaking awesome. Not expensive either, and super nice people. Kim, I come on. My lives are all at the same time every night. Try to be consistent. Not every night, but Wednesdays, Fridays, and Sundays. I'm on at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Oh, the beef on weck. Yes, it's been a long beef on weck. What about the garbage plate? I mean, come on. Let's be honest here. The garbage plate may be the greatest culinary concoction ever devised. Brock, no, I am in Rochester, actually. Hop, skip, and a jump down the thruway. So there's 84 of you in here, so I think I'm going to get started. Scale back the old music. Good evening from Buffalo. Welcome in. Alrighty, folks. Well, good evening and welcome. Tonight marks the beginning of a brand new night of storytelling. On Sundays, we gather for bedtime stories. On Wednesdays, we explore the strange and unsettling. And now Friday nights will be devoted to classic tales of science fiction. Stories of time and space, of technology and possibility, and the strange consequences they may bring. Our journey begins with a man sent back through time on a mission that may change history itself. Philip K. Dick's The Skull. So, settle in, dim the lights, and get comfortable. Storytime is about to begin. What is this opportunity? Conger asked. Go on, I'm interested. The room was silent. All faces were fixed on Conger, still in the drab prison uniform. The speaker leaned forward slowly. Before you went to prison, your legal trading business was paying well. All illegal, all very profitable. Now you have nothing except the prospect of another 6 years in a cell. Conger scowled. There is a certain situation, very important to this council, that requires your peculiar abilities. Also, it is a situation you might find interesting. You were a hunter, were you not? You've done a great deal of trapping, hiding in the bushes, waiting at night for the game. Gotta find a way to make that visual change automatic, but I imagine hunting must be a source of satisfaction to you. The chase, the stalking. Conger sighed, his lips twisted. All right, he said. Leave that out. Get to the point. Who do you want me to kill? The speaker smiled. All in proper sequence, he said softly. The car slid to a stop. It was night. There was no light anywhere along the street. Conger looked out. Where are we? What is this place? The hand of the guard pressed into his arm. Come, through that door. Conger stepped down onto the damp sidewalk. The guard came swiftly after him, and then the speaker. Conger took a deep breath of the cold air. He studied the dim outline of the building rising up before them. I know this place. I've seen it before. He squinted, his eyes growing accustomed to the dark. Suddenly, he became alert. This is... Yes, the first church. The speaker walked toward the steps. We're expected. Expected? Here? Yes. The speaker mounted the stairs. You know we're not allowed in their churches, especially with guns. He stopped. 2 armed soldiers loomed up ahead, 1 on each side. All right. The speaker looked up at them. They nodded. The door of the church was open. Conger could see other soldiers inside, standing about, young soldiers with large eyes gazing at the icons and holy images. I see, he said. It was necessary, the speaker said. As you know, we've been singularly unfortunate in the past in our relations with the First Church. This won't help, but it's worth it. You will see. They passed through the hall and into the main chamber where the altar piece was, and the kneeling places. The speaker scarcely glanced at the altar as they passed by. He pushed open a small side door and beckoned Conger through. In here. We have to hurry. The faithful will be flocking in soon. Conger entered, blinking. They were in a small chamber, low-ceilinged, with dark panels of old wood. There was a smell of ashes and smoldering spices in the room. He sniffed. What's that? The smell. Cups on the wall. I don't know. The speaker crossed impatiently to the far side. According to our information, it is hidden here by this. Conger looked around the room. He saw books and papers, holy signs and images. A strange new shiver went through him. Does my job involve anyone of the church? If it does, the speaker turned, astonished. Can it be that you believe in the founder? Is it possible a hunter, a killer? No, of course not. All their business about resignation to death, non-violence. What is it then? Conger shrugged. I've been taught not to mix with such as these. They have strange abilities, and you can't reason with them. The speaker studied Conger thoughtfully. You have the wrong idea. It is no one here that we have in mind. We've found that killing them only tends to increase their numbers. Then why come here? Let's leave. No, we came for something important. Something you will need to identify your man. Without it, you won't be able to find him. A trace of a smile crossed the speaker's face. We don't want you to kill the wrong person. It's too important. I don't make mistakes. Conger's chest rose. Listen, speaker. This is an unusual situation, the speaker said. You see, the person you are after, the person that we are sending you to find, is known only by certain objects here. They are the only traces, the only means of identification. Without them... What are they? He came toward the speaker. The speaker moved to one side. Look, he said. He drew a sliding wall away, showing a dark, square hole. In there. Conger squatted down, staring in. He frowned. A skull. A skeleton. The man you're after has been dead for 2 centuries, the speaker said. This is all that remains of him, and this is all you have with which to find him. For a long time, Conger said nothing. He stared down at the bones, dimly visible in the recesses of the wall. How could a man dead centuries be killed? How could he be stalked, brought down? Conger was a hunter, a man who had lived as he pleased, where he pleased. He had kept himself alive by trading, bringing furs and pelts in from the provinces on his own ship, riding at high speed, slipping through the customs line around Earth. He had hunted in the great mountains of the moon. He had stalked through empty Martian cities. He had explored. The speaker said, "Soldier, take these objects and have them carried to the car. Don't lose any part of them." The soldier went into the cupboard, reaching gingerly, squatting on his heels. "It is my hope," the speaker continued softly to Conger, "that you will demonstrate your loyalty to us now. There are always ways for citizens to restore themselves, to show their devotion to their society. For you, I think this would be a very good chance. I seriously doubt that a better one will come. And for your efforts, there will be quite a restitution, of course." The 2 men looked at each other. Conger, thin, unkempt, the speaker, immaculate in his uniform. "I understand you," Conger said. "I mean, I understand this part, about the chance. But how can a man who's been dead 2 centuries be—" "I'll explain later," the speaker said. "Right now we have to hurry." The soldier had gone out with the bones, wrapped in a blanket held carefully in his arms. The speaker walked to the door. "Come, they've already discovered that we've broken in here, and they'll be coming at any moment." They hurried down the damp steps to the waiting car. A second later, the driver lifted the car up into the air above the housetops. The speaker settled back in the seat. "The First Church has an interesting past," he said. "I suppose you are familiar with it. But I'd like to speak of a few points that are of relevancy to us. It was in the 20th century that the movement began, during one of the periodic wars. The movement developed rapidly, feeding on the general sense of futility, the realization that each war was breeding greater war, with no end in sight. The movement posed a simple answer to the problem. Without military preparations, weapons, there could be no war. And without machinery and complex scientific technocracy, there could be no weapons. The movement preached that you couldn't stop war by planning for it. They preached that man was losing to his machinery and science, that it was getting away from him, pushing him down into greater and greater wars, down with society. They shouted, down with factories and science. A few more wars and there wouldn't be much left of the world. The founder was an obscure person from the small town in the American Middle West. We don't even know his name. All we know is that one day he appeared preaching a doctrine of non-violence, non-resistance, no fighting, no paying taxes for guns, no research except for medicine. Live out your life quietly, tending your garden, staying out of public affairs, minding your own business. Be obscure, unknown, poor. Give away most of your possessions, leave the city. At least that was what developed from what he told the people. The car dropped down and landed on the roof. The founder preached his doctrine, or the germ of it. There's no telling how much the faithful have added themselves. The local authorities picked him up at once, of course. Apparently they were convinced that he meant it. He was never released. He was put to death and his body buried secretly. It seemed that the cult was finished. The speaker smiled. Unfortunately, some of his disciples reported seeing him after the date of his death. The rumors spread. He had conquered death. He was divine. It took hold and grew. And here we are today, with the first church obstructing all social progress, destroying society, sowing the seeds of anarchy. But the wars, Conger said. About them. The wars? Well, there were no more wars. It must be acknowledged that the elimination of war was the direct result of non-violence practiced on a general scale. But we can take a more objective view of war today. What was so terrible about it? War had a profound selective value, perfectly in accord with the teachings of Darwin and Mendel and others. Without war, the mass of useless, incompetent mankind, without training or intelligence, is permitted to grow and expand unchecked. War acted to reduce their numbers, like storms and earthquakes and droughts. It was nature's way of eliminating the unfit. Without war, the lower elements of mankind have increased, all out of proportion. They threaten the educated few, those with scientific knowledge and training, the ones equipped to direct society. They have no regard for science or a scientific society based on reason, and this movement seeks to aid and abet them. Only when scientists are in full control can the... He looked at his watch and then kicked the car door open. I'll tell you the rest as we walk. They crossed the dark roof. Doubtless you now know whom those bones belong to, who it is that we are after. He has been dead just 2 centuries now, this ignorant man from the Middle West, this founder. The tragedy is that the authorities of the time acted too slowly. They allowed him to speak, to get his message across. He was allowed to preach, to start his cult. And once such a thing is underway, there's no stopping it. But what if he had died before he preached? What if none of his doctrines had ever been spoken? It took only a moment for him to utter them that we know. They say he spoke just once, just one time. Then the authorities came, taking him away. He offered no resistance. The incident was small. The speaker turned to Conger. Small, but we're reaping the consequences of it today. They went inside the building. Inside, the soldiers had already laid out the skeleton on a table. The soldiers stood around it, their young faces intense. Conger went over to the table, pushing past them. He bent down, staring at the bones. So these are his remains, he murmured. The founder. The church has hidden them for 2 centuries. Quite so, the speaker said. But now we have them. Come along down the hall. They went across the room to a door. The speaker pushed it open. Technicians looked up. Conger saw machinery, whirring and turning, benches and retorts. In the center of the room was a gleaming crystal cage. The speaker handed a slim gun to Conger. The important thing to remember is that the skull must be saved and brought back for comparison and proof. Aim low at the chest. Conger weighed the gun in his hands. It feels good, he said. I know this gun, that is. I've seen them before, but I've never used one. The speaker nodded. You will be instructed on the use of the gun and the operation of the cage. You will be given all data we have on the time and location. The exact spot was a place called Hudson's Field. About 1960, in a small community outside Denver, Colorado. And don't forget, the only means of identification you will have will be the skull. There are visible characteristics of the front teeth, especially the left incisor. Conger listened absently. He was watching 2 men in white, carefully wrapping the skull in a plastic bag. They tied it and carried it into the crystal cage. And if I should make a mistake? Pick the wrong man? Then find the right one. Don't come back until you succeed in reaching this founder. And you can't wait for him to start speaking. That's what we must avoid. You must act in advance. Take chances. Shoot as soon as you think you've found him. He'll be someone unusual, probably a stranger in the area. Apparently he wasn't known. Conger listened dimly. Do you think you have it all now? The speaker asked. Yes, I think so. Conger entered the crystal cage and sat down, placing his hands on the wheel. Good luck, the speaker said. We'll be awaiting the outcome. There's some philosophical doubt as to whether one can alter the past. This should answer the question once and for all. Conger fingered the controls of the cage. By the way, the speaker said, don't try to use this cage for purposes not anticipated in your job. We have a constant trace on it. If we want it back, we can get it back. Good luck. Conger said nothing. The cage was sealed. He raised his finger and touched the wheel control. He turned the wheel carefully. He was still staring at the plastic bag when the room outside vanished. For a long time there was nothing at all. Nothing beyond the crystal mesh of the cage. Thoughts rushed through Conger's mind, helter-skelter. How would he know the man? How could he be certain in advance? What had he looked like? What was his name? How had he acted before he spoke? Would he be an ordinary person or some strange, outlandish crank? Conger picked up the slim gun and held it against his cheek. The metal of the gun was cool and smooth. He practiced moving the sight. It was a beautiful gun, the kind of gun he could fall in love with, if he had owned such a gun in the Martian desert. On the long nights when he had lain cramped and numbed with cold, waiting for things that moved through the darkness. He put the gun down and adjusted the meter readings of the cage. The spiraling mist was beginning to condense and settle. All at once, forms wavered and fluttered around him. Colors, sounds, movements filtered through the crystal wire. He clamped the controls off and stood up. He was on a ridge overlooking a small town. It was high noon. The air was crisp and bright. A few automobiles moved along the road. Off in the distance were some level fields. Conger went to the door and stepped outside. He sniffed the air. Then he went back into the cage. He stood before the mirror over the shelf, examining his features. He had trimmed his beard. They had not got him to cut it off, and his hair was neat. He was dressed in the clothing of the middle 20th century, the odd collar and coat, the shoes of animal hide, and in his pocket was money of the times. That was important. Nothing more was needed. Nothing except his ability, his special cunning, but he had never used it in such a way before. He walked down the road toward the town. The first things he noticed were the newspapers on the stands. April 5th, 1961. He was not too far off. He looked around him. There was a filling station, a garage, some taverns, and a 10-cent store. Down the street was a grocery store and some public buildings. A few minutes later, he mounted the stairs of the little public library and passed through the doors into the warm interior. The librarian looked up, smiling. "Good afternoon," she said. He smiled, not speaking because his words would not be correct. Accented and strange, probably. He went over to a table and sat down by a heap of magazines. For a moment he glanced through them. Then he was on his feet again. He crossed the room to a wide rack against the wall. His heart began to beat heavily. Newspapers, weeks on end. He took a roll of them over to the table and began to scan them quickly. The print was odd, the letters strange. Some of the words were unfamiliar. He set the papers aside and searched farther. At last he found what he wanted. He carried the Cherrywood Gazette to the table and opened it to the first page. He found what he wanted. Prisoner hangs self. An unidentified man held by the county sheriff's office for suspicion of criminal syndicalism was found dead this morning by... He finished the item. It was vague, uninforming. He needed more. He carried the Gazette back to the racks and then, after a moment's hesitation, approached the librarian. "More?" he asked. "More papers. Old ones." She frowned. "How old? Which papers?" "Months old, and before." "Of the Gazette? This is all we have. What did you want? What are you looking for? Maybe I can help you." He was silent. "You might find older issues at the Gazette office," the woman said, taking off her glasses. "Why don't you try there? But if you'd tell me, maybe I could help you." He went out. The Gazette office was down a side street. The sidewalk was broken and cracked. He went inside. A heater glowed in the corner of the small office. A heavy-set man stood up and came slowly over to the counter. "What did you want, mister?" he said. "Old papers, a month or more." "To buy? You want to buy them?" "Yes," he said. He held out some of the money he had. The man stared. "Sure," he said. "Sure, wait a minute." He went quickly out of the room. When he came back, he was staggering under the weight of his armload, his face red. "Here are some," he grunted. "Took what I could find. Covers the whole year. And if you want more..." Conger carried the papers outside. He sat down by the road and began to go through them. What he wanted was 4 months back in December. It was a tiny item, so small that he almost missed it. His hands trembled as he scanned it. using the small dictionary for some of the archaic terms. Man arrested for unlicensed demonstration. An unidentified man who refused to give his name was picked up in Cooper Creek by special agents of the sheriff's office. According to Sheriff Duff, it was said the man was recently noticed in this area and had been watched continually. It was Cooper Creek, December 1960. His heart pounded. That was all he needed to know. He stood up, shaking himself, stamping his feet on the cold ground. The sun had moved across the sky to the very edge of the hills. He smiled. Already he had discovered the exact time and place. Now he needed only to go back, perhaps to November, to Cooper Creek. He walked back through the main section of the town, past the library, past the grocery store. It would not be hard. The hard part was over. He would go there, rent a room, prepare to wait until the man appeared. He turned the corner. A woman was coming out of a doorway loaded down with packages. Conger stepped aside to let her pass. The woman glanced at him. Suddenly, her face turned white. She stared, her mouth open. Conger hurried on. He looked back. What was wrong with her? The woman was still glaring, still staring. She had dropped the packages to the ground. He increased his speed. He turned a second corner and went up a side street. When he looked back again, the woman had come to the entrance of the street and was staring at him, starting after him. A man joined her, and two of them began to run toward him. He lost them and left town, striding quickly, easily up into the hills at the edge of town. When he reached the cage, he stopped. What had happened? Was it something about his clothing? His dress? He pondered. Then, as the sun set, he stepped into the cage. Conger sat before the wheel. For a moment he waited, his hands resting lightly on the control. Then he turned the wheel just a little, following the control readings carefully. The grayness settled down around him, but not for very long. The man looked him over critically. "You better come inside," he said. "Out of the cold." "Thanks." Conger went gratefully through the open door into the living room. It was warm and close from the heat of the little kerosene heater in the corner. A woman, large and shapeless in her flowered dress, came from the kitchen. She and the man studied him critically. "It's a good room," the woman said. "I'm Mrs. Appleton. It's got heat. You need that this time of year." "Yes," he nodded, looking around. "You want to eat with us?" "What?" "You want to eat with us," the man's brows knitted. "You're not a foreigner, are you, mister?" "No," he smiled. "I was born in this country, quite far west, though." "California?" "No," he hesitated. "Oregon." "What's it like up there?" Mrs. Appleton asked. "I hear there's a lot of trees and green. It's so barren here. I come from Chicago myself." "That's the Middle West," the man said to her. "You ain't no foreigner." "Oregon isn't foreign either," Conger said. "It's part of the United States." The man nodded absently. He was staring at Conger's clothing. "It's a funny suit you got on there, mister," he said. "Where'd you get that?" Conger was lost. He shifted uneasily. "It's a good suit," he said. "Maybe I better go some other place if you don't want me here." They both raised their hands protestingly. The woman smiled at him. "We just have to look out for those Reds. You know, the government is always warning us about them." "The Reds?" He was puzzled. The government says they're all around. We're supposed to report anything strange or unusual. Anybody doesn't act normal. Like me. They looked embarrassed. Well, you don't look like a Red to me, the man said. But we have to be careful. The Tribune says... Conger half listened. It was going to be easier than he had thought. Clearly, he would know as soon as the founder appeared. These people so suspicious of anything different would be buzzing and gossiping and spreading the story. All he had to do was lie low and listen, down at the general store perhaps, or even here, in Mrs. Appleton's boarding house. "Can I see the room?" he said. "Certainly." Mrs. Appleton went to the stairs. "I'll be glad to show it to you." They went upstairs. It was colder upstairs, but not nearly as cold as outside, nor as cold as the nights on the Martian deserts. For that he was grateful. He was walking slowly around the store, looking at the cans of vegetables, the frozen packages of fish, and meats shining and clean in the open refrigerator counters. Ed Davies came toward him. "Can I help you?" he said. The man was a little oddly dressed, and with a beard. Ed couldn't help smiling. "Nothing," the man said in a funny voice. "Just looking." "Sure," Ed said. He walked back behind the counter. Mrs. Hackett was wheeling her cart up. "Who is he?" she whispered, her sharp face turned, her nose moving as if it were sniffing. "Never seen him before." "I don't know." "Looks funny to me. Why does he wear a beard? No one else wears a beard. Must be something the matter with him." "Maybe he likes to wear a beard. I had an uncle who—" "Wait," Mrs. Hackett stiffened. "Didn't that... What was his name? The Red. That old one. Didn't he have a beard? Marx? He had a beard." Ed laughed. "This ain't Karl Marx. I saw a photograph of him once." Mrs. Hackett was staring at him. "You did?" "Sure." He flushed a little. "What's the matter with that?" "I'd sure like to know more about him," Mrs. Hackett said. "I think we ought to know more, for our own good." "Hey, mister, want a ride?" Conger turned quickly, dropping his hand to his belt. He relaxed. 2 young kids in a car, a girl and a boy. He smiled at them. "A ride?" "Sure." Conger got into the car and closed the door. Bill Willett pushed the gas, and the car roared down the highway. "I appreciate a ride," Conger said carefully. "I was taking a walk between towns, but it was farther than I thought." "Where are you from?" Laura Hunt asked. She was pretty, small and dark in her yellow sweater and blue skirt. "From Cooper Creek." "Cooper Creek?" Bill said. He frowned. "That's funny. I don't remember seeing you before." "Why, do you come from there?" "I was born there. I know everybody there." "I just moved in. From Oregon." "From Oregon? I didn't know Oregon people had accents." "Do I have an accent?" "You use words funny." "How?" "I don't know. Doesn't he, Laura?" "You slur them," Laura said, smiling. "Talk some more. I'm interested in dialects." She glanced at him, white-teethed. Conger felt his heart constrict. "I have a speech impediment." "Oh," her eyes widened. "I'm sorry." They looked at him curiously as the car purred along. Conger, for his part, was struggling to find some way of asking them questions without seeming curious. "I guess people from out of town don't come here much," he said. "Strangers?" "No, Bill shook his head. Not very much. I'll bet I'm the first outsider for a long time. I guess so. Conger hesitated. A friend of mine, someone I know, might be coming through here. Where do you suppose I might... He stopped. Would there be anyone certain to see him? Someone I could ask. Make sure I don't miss him if he comes. They were puzzled. Just keep your eyes open. Cooper Creek isn't very big. No, that's right. They drove in silence. Conger studied the outline of the girl. Probably she was the boy's mistress. Perhaps she was his trial wife. Or had they developed trial marriage back so far? He could not remember. But surely such an attractive girl would be someone's mistress by this time. She would be 16 or so by her looks. He might ask her sometime, if they ever met again. The next day, Conger went walking along the one main street of Cooper Creek. He passed the general store, the 2 filling stations, and then the post office. At the corner was the soda fountain. He stopped. Laura was sitting inside talking to the clerk. She was laughing, rocking back and forth. Conger pushed the door open. Warm air rushed around him. Laura was drinking hot chocolate with whipped cream. She looked up in surprise as he slid into the seat beside her. I beg your pardon, he said. Am I intruding? No, she shook her head. Her eyes were large and dark. Not at all. The clerk came over. What do you want? Conger looked at the chocolate. Same as she has. Laura was watching Conger, her arms folded, elbows on the counter. She smiled at him. By the way, you don't know my name, Laura Hunt. She was holding out her hand. He took it awkwardly, not knowing what to do with it. Conger is my name, he murmured. Conger. Is that your first or last name? Last or first? He hesitated. Last, Omar Conger. Omar, she said. She laughed. That's like the poet, Omar Khayyam. I don't know of him. I know very little of poets. We restored very few works of art. Usually only the church has been interested enough. He broke off. She was staring. He flushed. Where I come from, he finished. The church. The church? Which church do you mean? The church. He was confused. The chocolate came and he began to sip it gratefully. Laura was still watching him. You're an unusual person, she said. Bill didn't like you, but he never likes anything different. He's so prosaic. Don't you think that when a person gets older, he should become broadened in his outlook? Conger nodded. He says foreign people ought to stay where they belong, not come here. But you're not so foreign. He means Orientals, you know. Conger nodded. The screen door opened behind him. Bill came into the room. He stared at them. Well, he said. Conger turned. Hello. Well, Bill sat down. Hello, Laura. He was looking at Conger. I didn't expect to see you here. Conger tensed. He could feel the hostility of the boy. Something wrong with that? No, nothing wrong with it. There was a silence. Suddenly, Bill turned to Laura. Come on, let's go. Go? She was astonished. Why? Just go. He grabbed her hand. Come on, the car's outside. Why, Bill Willett, Laura said. You're jealous. Who is this guy? Bill said. Do you know anything about him? Look at him. His beard. She flared. So what? Just because he doesn't drive a Packard and go to Cooper High? Conger sized the boy up. He was big and strong. Probably he was part of some civil control organization. Sorry, Conger said. I'll go. What's your business in town? Bill asked. What are you doing here? Why are you hanging around Laura? Conger looked at Laura. He shrugged. No reason. I'll see you later. He turned away and froze. Bill had moved. Conger's fingers went to his belt. Half pressure, he whispered to himself. No more. Half pressure. He squeezed. The room leaped around him. He himself was protected by the lining of his clothing, the plastic sheathing inside. My God! Laura put her hands up. Conger cursed. He hadn't meant any of it for her. But it would wear off. There was only a half amp to it. It would tingle and paralyze. He walked out the door without looking back. He was almost to the corner when Bill came slowly out, holding onto the wall like a drunken man. Conger went on. As Conger walked, restless in the night, a form loomed in front of him. He stopped, holding his breath. Who is it? A man's voice came. Conger waited, tense. Who is it? The man said again. He clicked something in his hand. A light flashed. Conger moved. It's me, he said. Who's me? Conger is my name. I'm staying at the Appletons' place. Who are you? The man came slowly up to him. He was wearing a leather jacket. There was a gun at his waist. I'm Sheriff Duff. I think you're the person I want to talk to. You were in Bloom's today, about 3 o'clock. Bloom's? The fountain, where the kids hang out. Duff came up beside him, shining his light into Conger's face. Conger blinked. Turn that thing away, he said. A pause. All right. The light flickered to the ground. You were there. Some trouble broke out between you and the Willett boys, is that right? You had a beef over his girl? We had a discussion, Conger said carefully. Then what happened? Why? I'm just curious. They say you did something. Did something? Did what? I don't know. That's what I'm wondering. They say a flash, and they saw a flash, and something seemed to happen. They all blacked out, couldn't move. How are they now? All right. There was silence. Well, Duff said, what was it? A bomb? A bomb? Conger laughed. No. My cigarette lighter caught fire. There was a leak, and the fluid ignited. Why did they all pass out? Fumes. Silence. Conger shifted, waiting. His fingers moved slowly toward his belt. The sheriff glanced down. He grunted. If you say so, he said. Anyhow, there wasn't any real harm done. He stepped back from Conger. And that Willett is a troublemaker. Well, good night, then, Conger said. He started past the sheriff. One more thing, Mr. Conger, before you go. You don't mind if I look at your identification, do you? No, not at all. Conger reached into his pocket. He held his wallet out. The sheriff took it and shined his flashlight on it. Conger watched, breathing shallowly. They had worked hard on the wallet, studying historic documents, relics of the time, all the papers they felt would be relevant. Duff handed it back. "Okay. Sorry to bother you." The light winked off. When Conger reached the house, he found the Appletons sitting around the television set. They did not look up as he came in. He lingered at the door. "Can I ask you something?" he said. Mrs. Appleton turned slowly. "Can I ask you, what's the date?" "The date? Why," she studied him, "the 1st of December." "December 1st? Why, it was just November." They were all looking at him. Suddenly he remembered. In the 20th century, they still used the old 12-month system. November fed directly into December. There was no Quartember between them. He gasped. Then it was tomorrow, the 2nd of December. Tomorrow. "Thanks," he said. "Thanks." He went up the stairs. What a fool he was, forgetting. The founder had been taken into captivity on the 2nd of December, according to the newspaper records. Tomorrow, only 12 hours hence, the founder would appear to speak to the people and then be dragged away. The day was warm and bright. Conger's shoes crunched the melting crust of snow. On he went, through the trees heavy with white. He climbed a hill and strode down the other side, sliding as he went. He stopped to look around. Everything was silent. There was no one in sight. He brought out a thin rod from his waist and turned the handle of it. For a moment, nothing happened. Then there was shimmering in the air. The crystal cage appeared and settled slowly down. Conger sighed. It was good to see it again. After all, it was his only way back. He walked up on the ridge. He looked around with some satisfaction, his hands on his hips. Hudson's Field was spread out all the way to the beginning of town. It was bare and flat, covered with a thin layer of snow. Here the founder would come. Here he would speak to them. And here the authorities would take them. Only he would be dead before they came. He would be dead before he even spoke. Conger returned to the crystal globe. He pushed through the door and stepped inside. He took the Slem gun from the shelf and screwed the bolt into place. It was ready to go, ready to fire. For a moment he considered. Should he have it with him? No. It might be hours before the founder came. And suppose someone approached him in the meantime. When he saw the founder coming toward the field, then he would go and get the gun. Conger looked toward the shelf. There was the neat package. He took it down and unwrapped it. He held the skull in his hands, turning it over. In spite of himself, a cold feeling rushed through him. This was the man's skull, the skull of the founder who was still alive, who would come here this day, who would stand on the field not 50 yards away. What if he could see this, his own skull, yellow and corroded, 2 centuries old? Would he still speak? Would he speak if he could see it, the grinning, aged skull? What would there be for him to say, to tell the people? What message could he bring? What action would not be futile when a man could look upon his own aged, yellowed skull? Better they should enjoy their temporary lives while they still had them to enjoy. A man who could hold his own skull in his hands would believe in a few causes, few movements. Rather, he would preach the opposite. A sound. Conger dropped the skull back on the shelf and took up the gun. Outside, something was moving. He went quickly to the door, his heart beating. Was it he? Was it the founder wandering by himself in the cold, looking for a place to speak? Was he meditating over his words, choosing his sentences? What if he could see what Conger held? He pushed the door open, the gun raised. Laura. He stared at her. She was dressed in a wool jacket and boots, her hands in her pockets. A cloud of steam came from her mouth and nostrils. Her breast was rising and falling. Silently, they looked at each other. At last, Conger lowered the gun. "What is it?" he said. "What are you doing here?" She pointed. She did not seem able to speak. He frowned. What was wrong with her? "What is it?" he said. "What do you want?" He looked in the direction she had pointed. "I don't see anything." "They're coming." "They? Who? Who are coming?" "They are. The police. During the night, the sheriff had the state police send cars. All around, everywhere, blocking the roads. There's about 60 of them coming. Some from town, some from behind, some around behind." She stopped, gasping. They said... "What?" "They said you were some kind of communist. They said..." Conger went into the cage. He put the gun down on the shelf and came back out. He leaped down and went to the girl. "Thanks. You came here to tell me? You don't believe it?" "I don't know." "Did you come alone?" "No. Joe brought me in his truck. From town." "Joe? Who's he?" "Joe French, the plumber. He's a friend of Dad's." "Let's go." They crossed the snow, up the ridge, onto the field. The little panel truck was parked halfway across the field. A heavy, short man was sitting behind the wheel, smoking his pipe. He sat up as he saw the two of them coming toward him. "Are you the one?" he said to Conger. "Yes. Thanks for warning me." The plumber shrugged. "I don't know anything about this. Laura says you're all right." He turned around. "It might interest you to know some more of them are coming. Not to warn you, just curious." "More of them." Conger looked toward the town. Black shapes were picking their way across the snow. "People from town. You can't keep this sort of thing quiet, not in a small town. We all listened to the police radio. They heard the same way Laura did. Someone tuned in, spread it around." The shapes were getting closer. Conger could make out a couple of them. Bill Willett was there, and some boys from the high school. The Appletons were along, hanging back in the rear. "Even Ed Davies," Conger murmured. The storekeeper was toiling onto the field with 3 or 4 other men from town. "All curious as hell," French said. "Well, I guess I'm going back to town. I don't want my truck shot full of holes. Come on, Laura." She was looking up at Conger, wide-eyed. Come on, French said again. "Let's go. You sure as hell can't stay here, you know." "Why?" "There may be a shooting. That's what they all came to see. You know that, don't you, Conger?" "Yes." "You have a gun, or don't you care?" French smiled a little. "They've picked up a lot of people in their time, you know. You won't be lonely." He cared, all right. He had to stay here, on the field. He couldn't afford to let them take him away. Any minute the founder would appear. He would step onto the field. He would be one of the townsmen, standing silently at the foot of the hill, waiting, watching. Or maybe he was Joe French. or maybe one of the cops. Any one of them might find himself moved to speak, and the few words spoken this day were going to be important for a long time. And Conger had to be there, ready when the first word was uttered. "I care," he said. "You go on back to town. Take the girl with you." Laura got stiffly in beside Joe French. The plumber started up the motor. "Look at them just standing there," he said, "like vultures waiting to see someone get killed." The truck drove away. Laura sitting stiff and silent, frightened now. Conger watched for a moment. Then he dashed back into the woods between the trees toward the ridge. He could get away, of course. Any time he wanted to, he could get away. All he had to do was to leap into the crystal cage and turn the handles. But he had a job, an important job. He had to be here at this place, at this time. He reached the cage and opened the door. He went inside and picked up the gun from the shelf. The Slem gun would take care of them. He notched it up to full count. The chain reaction from it would flatten them all. The police, the curious, sadistic people. They wouldn't take him. Before they got him, all of them would be dead. He would get away. He would escape. By the end of the day, they would all be dead, if that was what they wanted. And he saw the skull. Suddenly, he put the gun down. He picked up the skull. He turned the skull over. He looked at the teeth. Then he went to the mirror. He held the skull up, looking in the mirror. He pressed the skull against his cheek. Beside his own face, the grinning skull leered back at him. Beside his skull, against his living flesh. He bared his teeth, and he knew. It was his own skull that he held. He was the one who would die. He was the founder. After a time, he put the skull down. For a few minutes, he stood at the controls, playing with them idly. He could hear the sound of motors outside, the muffled noise of men. Should he go back to the present, where the speaker waited? He could escape, of course. Escape? He turned toward the skull. There it was, his skull, yellowed with age. Escape? Escape when he held it in his own hands? What did it matter if he put it off a month, a year, 10 years, even 50? Time was nothing. He had sipped chocolate with a girl born 150 years before his time. Escape? For a little while, perhaps? But he could not really escape, no more than anyone else had ever escaped or ever would. Only he had held it in his hands, his own bones, his own death's head. They had not. He went out the door and across the field, empty-handed. There were a lot of them standing around, gathered together, waiting. They expected a good fight. They knew he had something. They had heard about the incident at the fountain. And there were plenty of police. Police with guns and tear gas creeping across the hills and ridges between the trees, closer and closer. It was an old story in this century. One of the men tossed something at him. It fell in the snow by his feet, and he looked down. It was a rock. He smiled. "Come on," one of them called. "Don't you have any bombs? Throw a bomb. You with the beard, throw a bomb. Let him have it. Toss a few bombs." They began to laugh. He smiled. He put his hands to his hips. Then, suddenly, turned silent, seeing that he was going to speak. "I'm sorry," he said simply. "I don't have any bombs." "You're mistaken." There was a flurry of murmuring. "I have a gun," he went on. A very good one. Made by science, even more advanced than your own. But I'm not going to use that either." They were puzzled. "Why not?" someone called. At the edge of the group, an older woman was watching. He felt a sudden shock. He had seen her before. Where? He remembered. The day at the library. She had turned the corner. He had seen her. She had noticed him, had been astounded. At the time, he did not understand why. Conger grinned, so he would escape death. The man who right now was voluntarily accepting it. They were laughing at a man who had a gun but didn't use it. By a strange twist of science, he would appear again a few months later after his bones had been buried under the floor of a jail. And so, in a fashion, he would escape death. He would die, but then, after a period of months, he would live again, briefly, for an afternoon. An afternoon, yet long enough for them to see him, to understand that he was still alive, to know that somehow he had returned to life. And then, finally, he would appear once more, after 200 years had passed. 2 centuries later, he would be born again, born, as a matter of fact, in a small trading village on Mars. He would grow up, learning to hunt and trade. A police car came to the edge of the field and stopped. The people retreated a little. Conger raised his hands. "I have an odd paradox for you," he said. "Those who take lives will lose their own. Those who kill will die. But he who gives his own life away will live again." They laughed, faintly, nervously. The police were coming out, walking toward him. He smiled. He had said everything he intended to say. It was a good little paradox he had coined. They would puzzle over it, remember it. Smiling, Conger awaited a death foreordained. Papa. There we go. It's a good one. It's a good one. It's definitely a good one. So, I hope you're all enjoying this new night of storytelling. So that was Philip K. Dick's The Skull. A reminder that time travel really rarely goes the way anyone expects. So, before I finish tonight, there is one more story waiting for us. Some of you may remember from Wednesday night when I gave you the choice between 2 Ray Bradbury stories. The story you chose, The Halloween Party Gone Horribly Wrong, was The October Game. Which means tonight we visit the one that you left behind. It's a chilling tale about a newborn child and a mother who begins to suspect that something is terribly wrong. Oh yes, the baby. Ray Bradbury's The Small Assassin. Just when the idea occurred to her that she was being murdered, she could not tell. There had been little subtle signs, little suspicions for the past month, things as deep as sea tides in her, like looking at a perfectly calm stretch of tropic water, wanting to bathe in it and finding just as the tide takes your body that monsters dwell just under the surface, things unseen, bloated, many-armed, sharp-finned, malignant, and inescapable. A room floated around her in an effluvium of hysteria. Sharp instruments hovered, and there were voices and people in sterile white masks. My name, she thought. What is it? I do have a graphic. Thank you for reminding me. Oh, I get too into it. Alice Lieber, it came to her. David Lieber's wife, but it gave her no comfort. She was alone with these silent, whispering white people, and there was great pain and nausea and death fear in her. I am being murdered before their eyes. Those doctors, those nurses, they don't realize what hidden thing has happened to me. David doesn't know. Nobody knows except me and the killer, the little murderer, the small assassin. I am dying, and I can't tell them now. They'd laugh and call me one in delirium. They'll see the murderer and hold him and never think him responsible for my death. But here I am, in front of God and man, dying, no one to believe my story, everyone to doubt me, comfort me with lies, bury me in ignorance, mourn me, and salvage my destroyer. Where is David? She wondered. In the waiting room, smoking one cigarette after another, listening to the long tickings of the very slow clock? Sweat exploded from all her body at once, and with an agonized cry, "Now, try it and kill me," she screamed. Try, but it won't die. But I won't die. I won't." There was a hollowness, a vacuum. Suddenly the pain fell away. Exhaustion and dusk came around. It was over. Oh, God! She plummeted down and struck a black nothingness which gave way to nothingness, and another, and still another. Footsteps. Gentle, approaching footsteps. Far away a voice said, "She's asleep. Don't disturb her." An odor of tweeds, a pipe, a certain shaving lotion. David was standing over her. And beyond him the immaculate smell of Dr. Jeffers. She did not open her eyes. "I'm awake," she said quietly. It was a surprise, a relief to be able to speak, to not be dead. "Alice?" someone said, and it was David beyond her closed eyes, holding her tired hands. "Would you like to meet the murderer, David?" she thought. "I hear your voice asking to see him, so there's nothing but for me to point him out to you." David stood over her. She opened her eyes. The room came into focus. Moving a weak hand, she pulled aside a coverlet. The murderer looked up at David Lieber with a small, red-faced, blue-eyed calm. Its eyes were deep and sparkling. "Why," cried David Lieber, smiling, "he's a fine baby." Dr. Jeffers was waiting for David Lieber the day he came to take his wife and new child home. He motioned Lieber to a chair in his office, gave him a cigar, lit one for himself, and sat on the edge of his desk, puffing solemnly for a long moment. Then he cleared his throat, looked David Lieber straight on, and said, "Your wife doesn't like her child, David." "What?" "It's been a hard thing for her. She'll need a lot of love this next year. I didn't say much at the time, but she was hysterical in the delivery room. The strange things she said, I won't repeat them. All I'll say is that she feels alien to the child. Now, this may simply be a thing we can clear up with 1 or 2 questions." He sucked on his cigar another moment, then said, "Is this child a wanted child, Dave?" "Why do you ask?" "It's vital." Yes, it was a wanted child. We planned it together. Alice was so happy a year ago when... That makes it more difficult. Because if the child was unplanned, it would be a simple case of a woman hating the idea of motherhood. That doesn't fit Alice. Dr. Jeffers took his cigar from his lips, rubbed his hand across his jaw. It must be something else, then. Perhaps something buried in her childhood that's coming out now. Or it might be the simple temporary doubt and distrust of any mother who's gone through the unusual pain and near death that Alice has. If so, then a little time should heal that. I thought I'd tell you, though, Dave. It'll help you be easy and tolerant with her if she says anything about wishing the child had been born dead. And if things don't go, well, the 3 of you drop in on me. I'm always glad to see old friends, eh? Here, take another cigar along for the baby." It was a bright spring afternoon. Their car hummed along wide tree-lined boulevards. Blue sky, flowers, a warm wind. Dave talked a lot, lit his cigar, talked some more. Alice answered directly, softly, relaxing a bit more as the trip progressed. But she held the baby not tightly or warmly or motherly enough to satisfy the queer ache in David's mind. She seemed to be merely carrying a porcelain figure. "Well," he said, at last smiling, "what'll we name him?" Alice Lieber watched the green trees slide by. "Let's not decide yet. I'd rather wait until we get an exceptional name for him. Don't blow smoke in his face." Her sentences ran together with no change of tone. The last statement held no motherly reproof, no interest, no irritation. She just mouthed it, and it was said. The husband, disquieted, dropped the cigar from the window. "Sorry," he said. The baby rested in the crook of his mother's arms, shadows of sun and tree changing his face. His blue eyes opened like fresh blue spring flowers. Moist noises came from the tiny pink elastic mouth. Alice gave her baby a quick glance. Her husband felt her shiver against him. "Cold?" he asked. "A chill. Better raise the window, David." It was more than a chill. He rolled the window slowly up. Supper time. Dave had brought the child from the nursery, prepped him at a tiny, bewildered angle supported by many pillows in a newly purchased high chair. Alice watched her knife and fork move. "He's not high chair size," she said. "Fun having him here anyway," said Dave, feeling fine. "Everything's fun. At the office, too. Orders up to my nose. If I don't watch myself, I'll make another 15,000 this year. Hey, look at Junior, will you? Drooling all down his chin." He reached over to wipe the baby's mouth with his napkin. From the corner of his eye, he realized that Alice wasn't even watching. He finished the job. "I guess it wasn't very interesting," he said, back again at his food. "But one would think a mother'd take some interest in her own child." Alice jerked her chin up. Don't speak that way. Not in front of him. Later, if you must. Later? In back of, what's the difference? He quieted suddenly, swallowed, was sorry. All right. Okay. I know how it is. After dinner, she let him carry the baby upstairs. She didn't tell him to. She let him. Coming down, he found her standing by the radio listening to music she didn't hear. Her eyes were closed, her whole attitude one of wondering, self-questioning. She started when he appeared. Suddenly, she was at him, against him, soft, quick, the same. Her lips found him, kept him. He was stunned. Now that the baby was gone, upstairs, out of the room, she began to breathe again, live again. She was free. She was whispering, rapidly, endlessly. Thank you, darling, for being yourself, always, dependable, so very dependable. He had to laugh. My father told me, son, provide for your family. Wearily, she rested her dark, shining hair against his neck. You've overdone it. Sometimes I wish we were just the way we were when we were first married. No responsibilities, nothing but ourselves, no babies. She crushed his hand in hers, a supernatural whiteness in her face. Oh, Dave, once it was just you and me. We protected each other, and now we protect the baby, but get no protection from it. Do you understand? Lying in the hospital, I had time to think of a lot of things. The world is evil. Is it? Yes, it is. But the laws protect us from it. And when there aren't any laws, then love does the protecting. You're protected from my hurting you, my love. But my love, you're vulnerable to me, of all people, but love shields you. I feel no fear of you, because love cushions all your irritations, unnatural instincts, hatreds, and immaturities. But what about the baby? It's too young to know love, or a law of love, or anything until we teach it, and in the meantime to be vulnerable to it. Vulnerable to a baby. He held her away and laughed gently. Does a baby know the difference between right and wrong? She asked. No, but it'll learn. But a baby is so new, so amoral, so conscience-free. She stopped. Her arms dropped from him, and she turned swiftly. That noise. What was it? Lieber looked around the room. I didn't hear. She stared at the library door. In there, she said slowly. Lieber crossed the room, opened the door, and switched the library lights on and off. Not a thing, he came back to her. You're worn out. To bed with you, right now. Turning out the lights together, they walked slowly up the soundless hall stairs, not speaking. At the top, she apologized. My wild talk, darling. Forgive me. I'm exhausted. He understood, and said so. She paused, undecided by the nursery door. Then she fingered the brass knob sharply and walked in. He watched her approach the crib much too carefully, looked down and stiffen as if she'd been struck in the face. David! Lieber stepped forward and reached the crib. The baby's face was bright red and very moist. His small pink mouth opened and shut. His eyes were a fiery blue. His hands leapt about on the air. Oh, said David. He's just been crying. Has he? Alice Lieber seized the crib railing to balance herself. I didn't hear him. The door was closed. Is that why he breathes so hard? Why his face is red? Sure, poor little guy, crying all alone in the dark. He can sleep in our room tonight, just in case he cries. You'll spoil him, his wife said. Lieber felt her eyes follow as he rolled the crib into their bedroom. He undressed silently, sat on the edge of the bed. Suddenly he lifted his head, swore under his breath, snapped his fingers. Damn it! Forgot to tell you. I must fly to Chicago Friday. Oh, David. Her voice was lost in the room. I've put this trip off for 2 months, and now it's so critical I just have to go. I'm afraid to be alone. We'll have the new cook by Friday. She'll be here all the time. I'll only be gone a few days. I'm afraid. I don't know of what. You wouldn't believe me if I told you. I guess I'm crazy. He was in bed now. She darkened the room. He heard her walk around the bed, throw back the cover, slide in. He smelled the warm woman smell of her next to him. He said, If you want me to wait a few days, perhaps I could... No, she said, unconvinced. You go. I know it's important. It's just that I keep thinking about what I told you. Laws and love and protection. Love protects you from me. But the baby... She took a breath. What protects you from him, David? Before he could answer, before he could tell her how silly it was speaking of infants, she switched on the bedlight abruptly. Look, she said, pointing. The baby lay wide awake in its crib, staring straight at him, with deep, sharp blue eyes. The lights went out again. She trembled against him. It's not nice being afraid of the thing you birthed. Her whisper lowered, became harsh, fierce, swift. He tried to kill me. He lies there, listens to us talking, waiting for you to go away so he can try to kill me again. I swear it. Sobs broke from her. Please, he kept saying, soothing her. Stop it. Stop it, please. She cried in the dark for a long time. Very late she relaxed, shakingly against him. Her breathing came soft, warm, regular. Excuse me. Her body twitched its worn reflexes, and she slept. He drowsed, and just before his eyes lidded wearily down, sinking him into deeper and yet deeper tides, he heard a strange little sound of awareness and awakeness in the room. The sound of a small, moist, pinkly elastic lips. The baby. And then sleep. In the morning, the sun blazed. Alice smiled. David Lieber dangled his watch over the crib. See, baby? Something bright. Something pretty. Sure, something bright, something pretty. Alice smiled. She told him to go ahead, fly to Chicago. She'd be very brave. No need to worry. She'd take care of baby. Oh yes, she'd take care of him all right. The airplane went east. There was a lot of sky, a lot of sun. Holy cow. My apologies. A lot of sun and clouds and Chicago running over the horizon. Dave was dropped into the rush of ordering, planning, banqueting, telephoning, arguing in conference, but he wrote letters each day and sent telegrams to Alice and the baby. On the evening of his 6th day away from home, he received the long-distance phone call. Los Angeles. Alice? No, Dave, this is Jeffers speaking. Doctor! Hold on to yourself, son. Alice is sick. You'd better get the next plane home. It's pneumonia. I'll do everything I can, boy. If only it wasn't so soon after the baby. She needs strength. Lieber dropped the phone into its cradle. He got up with no feet under him and no hands and no body. The hotel room blurred and fell apart. Alice, he said, blindly starting for the door. The propellers spun about, whirled, fluttered, stopped. Time and space were put behind. Under his hand, David felt the doorknob turn. Under his feet, the floor assumed reality. Around him flowed the walls of a bedroom in the late afternoon sunlight. Dr. Jeffers stood, turning from a window, as Alice lay waiting in her bed. Something carved from a fall of winter snow. Then Dr. Jeffers was talking continuously, gently, the sound rising and falling through the lamplight, a soft flutter, a white murmur of voice. Your wife's too good a mother, Dave. She worried more about the baby than herself. Somewhere in the paleness of Alice's face, there was a sudden constriction which smoothed itself out before it was realized. Then, slowly, half smiling, she began to talk. And she talked as a mother should about this, and this, that, and the other thing, the telling detail, the minute-by-minute and hour-by-hour report of a mother concerned with a dollhouse world and the miniature life of that world. But she could not stop. The spring was wound tight, and her voice rushed on to anger, fear, and the faintest touch of revulsion, which did not change Dr. Jeffers' expression, but caused Dave's heart to match the rhythm of this talk that quickened and could not stop. The baby wouldn't sleep. I thought he was sick. He just lay staring in his crib. And late at night he'd cry, so loud he'd cry, and he'd cry all night and all night. I couldn't quiet him, and I couldn't rest. Dr. Jeffers' head nodded slowly. Tired herself right into pneumonia. She's full of sulfur now, and on the safe side of the whole damned thing. David felt ill. The baby. What about the baby? Fit as a fiddle. Cock of the walk. Thanks, Doctor. The doctor walked off away and down the stairs, opened the front door faintly, and was gone. David! He turned to her frightened whisper. It was the baby again. She clutched his hand. I try to lie to myself and say that I'm a fool, but the baby knew I was weak from the hospital, so he cried all night, every night. And when he wasn't crying, he'd be much too quiet. I knew if I switched on the light, he'd be there staring up at me. David felt his body close in on itself like a fist. He remembered seeing the baby, feeling the baby, awake in the dark, awake very late at night when babies should be asleep. Awake and lying there, silent as thought, not crying, but watching from its crib. He thrust the thought aside. It was insane. Alice went on. I was going to kill the baby. Yes, I was. When you'd been gone only a day on your trip, I went to his room, and I put my hands about his neck, and I stood there for a long time thinking, afraid. Then I put the covers up over his face, turned him over on his face and pressed him down and left him that way and ran out of the room. He tried to stop her. No, let me finish, she said, hoarsely, looking at the wall. When I left his room, I thought, it's simple. Babies smother every day. No one will ever know. But when I came back to see him dead, David, he was alive. Yes, alive, turned over on his back, alive and smiling and breathing. And I couldn't touch him again after that. I left him there. And I didn't come back, not to feed him or look at him or do anything. Perhaps the cook tended to him. I don't know. All I know is that his crying kept me awake. And I thought all through the night and walked around the rooms, and now I'm sick. She was almost finished now. The baby lies there and thinks of ways to kill me, simple ways, because he knows I know so much about him. I have no love for him. There is no protection between us. There never will be. She was through. She collapsed inward on herself and finally slept. David Lieber stood there for a long time over her, not able to move. His blood was frozen in his body. Not a cell stirred anywhere at all. The next morning there was only one thing to do. He did it. He walked into Dr. Jeffers' office and told him the whole thing and listened to Jeffers' tolerant replies. "Let's take this whole thing slowly, son. It's quite natural for mothers to hate their children sometimes. We have a label for it. Ambivalence. The ability to hate while loving. Lovers hate each other frequently. Children detest their mothers." Lieber interrupted. "I never hated my mother." "You won't admit it, naturally. People don't enjoy admitting hatred for their loved ones." "So Alice hates her baby." "Better say that she has an obsession. She's gone a step further than plain, ordinary ambivalence. A cesarean operation brought the child into the world and almost took Alice out of it. She blames the child for her near death and her pneumonia. She's projecting her troubles, blaming them on the handiest object she can use as a source of blame. We all do it. We stumbled into a chair and curse the furniture, not our own clumsiness. We miss a golf stroke and damn the turf on our club or the make of the ball. If our business fails, we blame the gods, the weather, or our luck. All I can tell you is that what I told you before. Love her. Finest medicine in the world. Find little ways of showing your affection. Give her security. Find ways of showing her how harmless and innocent the child is. Make her feel that the baby was worth the risk. After a while, she'll settle down, forget about death, and begin to love the child. If she doesn't come around in the next month or so, ask me. I'll recommend a good psychiatrist. Go on along now and take that look off your face." When summer came, things seemed to settle, become easier. Dave worked, immersed himself in office detail, but found much time for his wife. She, in turn, took long walks, gained strength, played an occasional light game of badminton. She rarely burst out anymore. She seemed to have rid herself of her fears. Except on one certain midnight, when a sudden summer wind swept around the house, warm and swift, shaking the trees like so many shining tambourines. Alice wakened, trembling, and slid over into her husband's arms and let him console her and ask her what was wrong. She said, "Something's here in the room, watching us." She switched on the light. "Dreaming again," he said. "You're better, though. Haven't been troubled for a long time." She sighed as he clicked off the light again, and suddenly she slept. He held her, considering what a sweet, weird creature she was, for about a half an hour. He heard the bedroom door sway open a few inches. There was nobody at the door. No reason for it to come open. The wind had died. He waited. It seemed like an hour he lay silently in the dark. Then, far away, wailing like some small meteor dying in the vast inky gulf of space, the baby began to cry in his nursery. It was a small, lonely sound in the middle of the stars and the dark and the breathing of this woman in his arms, and the wind beginning to sweep through the trees again. Lieber counted to 100, slowly. The crying continued. Carefully disengaging Alice's arm, he slipped from bed, put on his slippers, robe, and moved quietly from the room. He'd go downstairs, he thought, fix some warm milk, bring it up, and the blackness dropped out from under him. His foot slipped and plunged, slipped on something soft, plunged into nothingness. He thrust his hands out, caught frantically at the railing. His body stopped falling. He held. He cursed. The something soft that had caused his feet to slip rustled and thumped down a few steps. His head rang. His heart hammered at the base of his throat, thick and shot with pain. Why do careless people leave things strewn about a house? He groped carefully with his fingers for the object that had almost spilled him headlong down the stairs. His hand froze. His breath went in. His heart held on 1 or 2 beats. The thing he held in his hand was a toy, a large, cumbersome patchwork doll he had bought as a joke. For the baby. Ooh. Alice drove him to work the next day. She slowed the car halfway down, pulled to the curb, and stopped it. Then she turned on the seat and looked at her husband. I want to go away on a vacation. I don't know if you can make it now, darling, but if not, please let me go alone. We can get someone to take care of the baby, I'm sure. But I just have to get away. I thought I was growing out of this feeling, but I haven't. I can't stand being in the room with him. He looks up at me as if he hates me, too. I can't put my finger on it. All I know is I want to get away before something happens. He got out on his side of the car, came around, motioned to her to move over, and got in. The only thing you're going to do is see a good psychiatrist. And if he suggests a vacation, well, okay. But this can't go on. My stomach's in knots all the time. He started the car. I'll drive the rest of the way. Her head was down. She was trying to keep back tears. She looked up when they reached his office building. All right, make the appointment. I'll go talk to anyone you want, David. He kissed her. Now you're talking sense, lady. Think you can drive home okay? Of course, silly. See you at supper, then. Drive carefully. Don't I always? Bye. He stood on the curb, watching her drive off. The wind taking hold of her long, dark, shining hair. Upstairs, a minute later, he phoned Jeffers and arranged an appointment with a reliable neuropsychiatrist. The day's work went uneasily. Things fogged over, and in the fog he kept seeing Alice lost and calling his name. So much of her fear had come over to him. She actually had him convinced that the child was in some ways not quite natural. He dictated long, uninspired letters. He checked some shipments downstairs. Assistants had to be questioned and kept going. At the end of the day, he was exhausted. His head throbbed, and he was very glad to go home. On the way down in the elevator, he wondered, what if I told Alice about the toy? That patchwork doll. He was exhausted. His head throbbed, and he was very glad to go home. Oops. I slipped on this. Lord, wouldn't that back her off? No, I won't ever tell her. Accidents are, after all, accidents. Daylight lingered in the sky as he drove home in a taxi. In front of the house, he paid the driver and walked slowly up the cement walk, enjoying the light that was still in the sky and the trees. The white colonial front of the house looked unnaturally silent and uninhabited. And then, quietly, he remembered this was Thursday, and the hired help they were able to obtain from time to time were all gone for the day. He took a deep breath of air. A bird sang behind the house. Traffic moved on the boulevard a block away. He twisted the key in the door. The knob turned under his fingers, oiled, silent. The door opened. He stepped in, put his hat on the chair with his briefcase, started to shrug out of his coat when he looked up. Late sunlight streamed down the stairwell from the window near the top of the hall. Where the sunlight touched it, took on the bright color of the patchwork doll sprawled at the bottom of the stairs. But he paid no attention to the toy. He could only look and not move, and look again at Alice. Alice lay in a broken, grotesque, pallid gesturing and angling of her thin body at the bottom of the stairs, like a crumpled doll that doesn't want to play anymore, ever. Alice was dead. The house remained quiet except for the sound of his heart. She was dead. He held her head in his hands. He felt her fingers. He held her body, but she wouldn't live. She wouldn't even try to live. He said her name out loud many times, and he tried once again by holding her to him to give her back some of the warmth she had lost. But that didn't help. He stood up. He must have made a phone call. He didn't remember. He found himself suddenly upstairs. He opened the nursery door and walked inside, stared blankly at the crib. His stomach was sick. He couldn't see very well. The baby's eyes were closed, but his face was red, moist with perspiration, as if he'd been crying long and hard. "She's dead," said Lieber to the baby. "She's dead." Then he started laughing, low and soft and continuously for a long time, until Dr. Jeffers walked in out of the night and slapped him again and again across his face. "Snap out of it! Pull yourself together!" "She fell down the stairs, Doctor. She tripped on a patchwork doll and fell. I almost slipped on it the other night myself, and now—" The doctor shook him. Doc, said Dave hazily. Funny thing, funny. I finally thought of a name for the baby." Lieber put his head back on his trembling hands, spoke the words. "I'm going to have him christened next Sunday. Know what name I'm going to give him? I'm going to call him Lucifer." It was 11 at night. A lot of strange people had come and gone through the house, taking the essential flame with them. Alice. David Lieber sat across from the doctor in the library. Alice wasn't crazy, he said slowly. She had good reason to fear the baby. Jeffers exhaled. Don't follow her. She blamed the child for her sickness. Now you blame it for her death. She stumbled on a toy. Remember that. You can't blame the child. You mean Lucifer? Stop calling him that. Lieber shook his head. Alice heard things at night, moving in the halls. You want to know what made those noises, Doctor? They were made by the baby, 4 months old, moving in the dark, listening to us talk, listening to every word. He held to the sides of the chair. And if I turn the lights on, a baby is so small, it can hide behind the furniture, a door, against a wall, below eye level. I want you to stop this, said Jeffers. Let me say what I think, or I'll go crazy. When I went to Chicago, who was it kept Alice awake, tiring her into pneumonia? The baby. And when Alice didn't die, then he tried killing me. It was simple. Leave a toy on the stairs, cry in the night until your father goes downstairs to fetch your milk and stumbles. A crude trick, but effective. It didn't get me, but it killed Alice dead. David Lieber stopped long enough to light a cigarette. I should have caught on. I'd turn on the light in the middle of the night, many nights, and the baby'd be lying there, eyes wide. Most babies sleep all the time, not this one. He stayed awake, thinking. Babies don't think. He stayed awake, doing whatever he could do with his brain then. What in hell do we know about a baby's mind? He had every reason to hate Alice. She suspected him for what he was, certainly not a normal child. Something different. What do you know of babies, Doctor? The general run, yes, you know, of course, how babies kill their mothers in birth. Why? It could be a resentment at being forced into a lousy world like this one. Lieber leaned toward the doctor tiredly. It all ties up. Suppose that a few babies out of all the millions born are instantaneously able to move, see, hear, think like many animals and insects can. Insects are born self-sufficient. In a few weeks, most mammals and birds adjust, but children take years to speak and learn to stumble around on their own weak legs. But suppose one child in a billion is strange. Born perfectly aware, able to think instinctively. Wouldn't it be a perfect setup, a perfect blind for everything, anything the baby might want to do? He could pretend to be ordinary, weak, crying, ignorant. With just a little expenditure of energy, he could crawl about a darkened house, listening. And how easy to place obstacles at the top of the stairs, how easy to cry all night and tire a mother into pneumonia. How easy, right at birth, to be close to the mother, and that a few deft maneuvers might cause periodontitis. For God's sake, Jeffers was on his feet. That's a repulsive thing to say. It's a repulsive thing I'm speaking of. How many mothers have died at the birth of their children? How many have suckled strange little improbabilities who cause death one way or another? Strange, red little creatures with brains that work in a bloody darkness we can't even guess at. Elemental little brains, a swarm with racial memory, hatred, and a raw cruelty with no more thought than self-preservation. And self-preservation in this case consisted of eliminating a mother who realized what a horror she had birthed. I ask you, Doctor, what is there in the world more selfish than a baby? Nothing. Jeffers scowled and shook his head, helplessly. Lieber dropped his cigarette down. I'm not claiming any great strength for the child, just enough to crawl around a little. A few months ahead of schedule. Just enough to listen all the time, just enough to cry late at night. That's enough, more than enough. Jeffers tried ridicule. Call it murder, then. But murder must be motivated. What motive had the child? Lieber was ready with the answer. What is more at peace, more dreamfully content, at ease, at rest, fed, comforted, unbothered than an unborn child? Nothing. It floats in a sleepy, timeless wonder of nourishment and silence. Then, suddenly, it is asked to give up its birth. It's forced to vacate, rush out into a noisy, uncaring, selfish world where it is asked to shift for itself, to hunt, to feed from the hunting, to seek after a vanishing love that once was its unquestionable right, to meet confusion instead of inner silence and conservative slumber. And the child resents it, resents the cold air, the huge spaces, the sudden departure from familiar things. And in the tiny filament of brain, the only thing the child knows is selfishness and hatred because the spell has been rudely shattered. Who is responsible for this disenchantment, this rude breaking of the spell? The mother. So here the new child has someone to hate with all its unreasoning mind. The mother has cast it out, rejected it, and the father is no better. Kill him too. He's responsible in his way. Jeffers interrupted. If what you say is true, then every woman in the world would have to look on her baby as something to dread, something to wonder about. And why not? Hasn't the child a perfect alibi? 1,000 years of accepted medical belief protects him. By all natural accounts, he is helpless, not responsible. The child is born hating, and things grow worse instead of better. At first, the baby gets a certain amount of attention and mothering, but then as time passes, things change. When very new, a baby has the power to make parents do silly things when it cries or sneezes, jump when it makes a noise. As years pass, the baby feels even that small power slip rapidly, forever away, never to return. Why shouldn't it grasp all the power it can have? Why shouldn't it jockey for position while it has all the advantages? In later years, it would be too late to express its hatred. Now would be the time to strike. Lieber's voice was very soft, very low. My little baby boy, lying in his crib nights, his face moist and red and out of breath from crying? No. From climbing slowly out of his crib, from crawling long distances through the darkened hallways. My little boy baby. I want to kill him. The doctor handed him a water glass and some pills. You're not killing anyone. You're going to sleep for 24 hours. Sleep will change your mind. Take this. Lieber drank down the pills and let himself be led upstairs to his bedroom, crying, and felt himself being put to bed. The doctor waited until he was moving deep into sleep, then left the house. Lieber alone drifted down. He heard a noise. What's that? He demanded feebly. Something moved in the hallway. David Lieber slept. Very early the next morning, Dr. Jeffers drove up to the house. It was a good morning, and he was here to drive Lieber to the country for a rest. Lieber would still be asleep upstairs. Jeffers had given him enough sedative to knock him out for at least 15 hours. He rang the doorbell. No answer. The servants were probably not up. Jeffers tried the front door, found it open, stepped in. He put his medical kit on the nearest chair. Something white moved out of sight at the top of the stairs. Just a suggestion of movement. Jeffers hardly noticed it. The smell of gas was in the house. Jeffers ran upstairs, crashing into Lieber's bedroom. Lieber lay motionless on the bed, and the room billowed with gas, which hissed from a release jet at the base of the wall near the door. Jeffers twisted it off, then forced up all the windows and ran back to Lieber's body. The body was cold. It had been dead quite a few hours. Coughing violently, the doctor hurried from the room, eyes watering. Lieber hadn't turned on the gas himself. He couldn't have. Those sedatives had knocked him out. He wouldn't have wakened until noon. It wasn't suicide. Or was there the faintest possibility? Jeffers stood in the hall for 5 minutes. Then he walked to the door of the nursery. It was shut. He opened it. He walked inside and to the crib. The crib was empty. He stood swaying by the crib for half a minute. Then he said something to nobody in particular. Nursery door blew shut. You couldn't get back into your crib where it was safe. You didn't plan on the door blowing shut. A little thing like slammed door could ruin the best of plans. I'll find you somewhere in the house, hiding, pretending to be something you are not. The doctor looked dazed. He put his hand to his head and smiled palely. Now I'm talking like Alice and David talked. But I can't take any chances. I'm not sure of anything, but I can't take any chances. He walked downstairs, opened his medical bag on the chair, took something out of it and held it in his hands. Something rustled down the hall. Something very small and very quiet. Jeffers turned rapidly. I had to operate to bring you into this world, he thought. Now I guess I can operate to take you out of it. He took a half-dozen slow, sure steps forward into the hall. He raised his hand into the sunlight. See, baby, something bright, something pretty. A scalpel. And that was Ray Bradbury's The Small Assassin. So for those of you that were here on Wednesday, I have to ask, are you still happy you chose the Halloween party? Oh, I love it. Yeah, most people don't see that one coming because boy, it gets dark. But suffice it to say, it really didn't matter which one you guys picked. It was not going to go well. Oh boy. Very quick. Very, very quick. So, it is now 11:14 here on the East Coast. And I want to thank you guys for being here tonight as we began something new together. I am... Friday nights are now going to join our schedule of Storytimes alongside of Sunday night bedtime stories and our Wednesday explorations into the strange and unsettling. I'm very grateful that you chose to spend part of your Friday evening with me. I really appreciate that. I love you too, Sourduck. Seriously. And yes, thank you to my wonderful mods, Songbird 007, Wings That Work, and Tessa Vale Audio. They are essential in helping me keep this thing working. So, I will just say you're very welcome, because you won't accept any other answer than that. But I really do appreciate you. Just a little housekeeping. Oh, Gibraltar. Wonderful. I am super happy to have you here. Well, I'd be happy to have you here regardless of where you're from, but knowing you're from Gibraltar, you're listening from Gibraltar is pretty damn cool. Pretty damn cool. I'll be back on Sunday with more of Mrs. Frisbee and the Rats of Nim. We'll have one more weekend after this one with her. And as a reminder, if you do want to support the channel and help me keep this thing going, help me keep the lights on, and help me keep the fire lit, I do offer subscriptions for $2.99 a month. Basic perks. I set the lowest tier. I currently have 5 subscribers, which is awesome. I would love to have you as well. But whether you subscribe or not, I am truly, truly grateful that you spent some time with me this evening. And for those of you that keep coming back, and for those of you that will be here on Sunday, I really, truly appreciate you. So, until then, as always, please be kind to each other. And be kind to yourself. Because kindness matters. So do you. I'll see you Sunday.